Hi there, I'm Jordan from the VGM Real Book channel, and today I'm going to be doing an analysis of Patrick Bartley's solo on Corridors of Time from Chrono Trigger. The recording comes from Don Palombi's Game Night Live, but there's also a studio version with a different great solo. For most of the piece, there's a 4-bar chord progression. Since we're in the realm of 3 sharps and we seem to resolve to the F sharp minor 7 chord, we can safely say that we're in the key of F sharp minor. This is actually the same chord progression as the original track, although it sounds very different arranged in this style. Comparing Corridors of Time to certain jazz standards, you'll notice that, where it's common for jazz standards to borrow chords from outside of the key, Corridors of Time uses only diatonic chords. Because the chord progression is so simple, you do have to be more creative in some sense. The chords are nice, but they aren't providing much interest by themselves, so your solo needs to keep changing and have its own musical arc. To understand the arc Patrick creates throughout his solo, consider his starting point. When the recording transitions from the original snaz arrangement into a funk style, the rhythm section takes a bit to just vamp and relax into the groove. I want to just focus a bit on the first 2 bars of the solo because they exemplify the importance of restraint in your playing. Some musicians rail against the notion of overplaying, but it really is true that limitation breeds creativity. In a solo, you might be tempted to play it as fast as you can or as high as you can to make the most of your limited time to show off. And sometimes the piece tees you up to start big. But this is not that occasion, and Patrick shows that he understands how to serve the song with the way that he starts the solo. He refuses to overpower the backing track by leaving space around these 2 phrases, and the space also gives the listener time to focus their attention onto the saxophone. When Patrick repeats the melodic idea he established, it gives the listener another opportunity to latch onto his playing. Repetition is one of the most powerful techniques in the soloist's toolbox, as it allows them to develop an idea and draw the listener in. There are plenty of great moments of repetition which are really catchy and melodic. Even though Patrick plays pretty much the same phrase twice in a row, it doesn't get boring because it's not an exact repetition, there's still some evolution. Not only is the phrase not exactly the same, but the harmony is also shifting beneath it. In the first instance of the phrase, the notes outline the 1st, 3rd, 4th and 5th of the 1 chord. The second instance outlines the 3rd, 5th, 6th and 7th of the 6 chord. That chord movement from the 1 to the 6 gives the exact same notes a different feeling because they're outlining different parts of the chord. Specifically, the repetition of the phrase hits the 6th and 7th, which are the chord's extensions, the more colourful notes in the chord. Miles Davis is quoted as saying that it's not the notes you play, it's the notes you don't play which make great music. Just like pausing for dramatic effect is an important tool for speech makers, being purposeful about when you stop playing is key to making the most out of every musical technique you have at your disposal. Fundamentally, something grooving is due in equal part to both when the note starts and when the note ends. This idea extends to the space you leave between phrases. Patrick could easily play a constant stream of semiquavers, which would be cool but relatively unmusical since your ear would have no contrast to give shape to the music. Look at how the number of whole beat rests decreases over the first 7 bars. From 2 full beats of rest in bars 1 and 2, to 1 in bar 3, to just 1 over bar 4 and 5, 1 in bar 6, 2 in bar 7, and finally none from bar 8 to bar 23. If we were to make a graph with this data, it would look surprisingly similar to Freytag's pyramid. Freytag's pyramid is a framework for thinking about narrative structure, which is often broken down into 6 stages: exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. The first 8 bars of Patrick's solo fit pretty neatly into this structure. The first 3 bars give us an introduction and some rising tension. The 4th bar acts as the climax by being the first full bar without a beat of rest. And the 7th bar is the resolution with 2 full beats of rest. Now that Patrick's raised the energy of his solo in a narratively satisfying way, he can play for around 13 bars without a full beat of rest. I know that pulling out a graph can be construed as hyper-analytic and a reductive way to talk about creative self-expression, but these concepts ring true to me at the micro level of the individual notes, and also at the macro level of Patrick's entire solo. Zooming out, it's not hard to place every moment in the solo on Freytag's pyramid. The first 8 bars can constitute the exposition and the inciting incident. This would let bars 9 to about 33 be the rising tension. And then for me, the climax of the solo is bar 34, where Patrick holds a long note and the horn backings enter. Finally, that leaves the rest of the solo, where Patrick is transitioning back to the main melody to be the falling action and resolution. I think something that helps give Patrick's solo such a strong sense of a narrative arc is the fact that he knows the structure of the piece so well. According to Palombi, who put this session together, Patrick actually wrote those horn backings that come in bar 34. Because Patrick knows the arrangement so well, he knows when the climax is meant to be, and he's able to mark it with a moment of musical contrast. At the climax, he holds an E for 6 beats, which really contrasts against all the fast notes he's been playing up to this point, and also gives the horn backing space to be heard. In this climactic section, Patrick really gets a lot out of the simple motif of slowly building up tension, rising in pitch, and then resolving the tension. Speaking of raising tension, it's probably also no coincidence that it's in the rising tension section that Patrick plays the first non-diatonic notes. In fact, throughout the whole solo, there are only about 6 non-diatonic notes. The infrequency with which the solo leaves the key should be reassuring to anyone who's intimidated by the thought of needing to learn a bunch of scales. Patrick himself uses a few different key approaches to note choice. For example, in bar 41, he plays an inverted F# minor 7 arpeggio. In bars 16 and 17, every note comes from the F# minor pentatonic scale. But there are also a few well-placed non-diatonic moments. I particularly like the sharp 5 in bar 12. The syncopation over beats 3 and 4 breaks up the otherwise constant semiquavers, and the 5 is a fairly common note to alter as it doesn't contain as much harmonic information as a note like the 3. It's also important to note that Patrick doesn't just run scales up and down in intervals of half steps and whole steps. Throughout the entire solo, he's constantly cycling through different patterns to keep things interesting. One specific interval I've highlighted in red is the ascending 4th and the descending 5th. For example, look at bars 39 and 50. Patrick ascends a 4th from the B to the E, a 4th from the F sharp to the B, and then down a 5th to the E. Since the relationship between the 1 and the 5 is so strong, this series of intervals is really fundamentally satisfying. So there's a lot of playing in this solo which everyone would benefit from imitating, but for the purposes of this video, I've only been able to focus on a few specifics. Patrick's timing, his tone, and his pitch are all outstanding, but these are fundamentals that great soloists consistently nail. There are also aspects of your playing which you can work on mastering without having the chops to play really fast or really high. I would so highly encourage you to finish this video, go to the backing track I made, and play along. While you improvise, keep in mind what you've learned from Patrick's solo. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. If this is the only video you've seen from this channel, normal videos consist of backing tracks for video game music as if they were jazz standards. The original transcription and this follow-up were experiments in a different kind of content, so please let me know if you enjoyed this by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. There's also a Ko-fi page where you can make a donation, request the next backing track to be uploaded, or purchase all the backing tracks and the sheet music in downloadable forms. Thanks again for watching, and go to ko-fi.com/BGMRealbook if you'd like to support the channel.